Yes, ma'am.
What are the other approaches to budgeting? We see. Somebody please put it in the chat group. Who are the absentees? So only 8 students have joined. So even if the student was present in the mornings, the first slot also, consider the student to be present. If the student, any student is not present for both the sessions, please mention that, because I do not know the names or any other thing. Please write the name in the chat, and then I have to communicate this with sir. Okay. What are the approaches to budgeting? Approaches, the other approaches to budgeting, we see, we just now discussed about periodic versus rolling. Now we see, um, incremental budgeting. The normal way of preparing budgets is by way of, um, but only 8 students are there, no? Is the strength only 9? Is the strength only 9?
10, ma'am.
How many?
10 people.
But the morning session, one person was there, but he's not like present in the afternoon section, ma'am.
But what's the total strength?
10, ma'am, 10.
Okay, okay, done, done.
Okay.
um, the incremental budgeting, zero based budgeting, and activity based budgeting. These are the other approaches to budgeting. So, incremental budgeting talks about, normally that's how the budgets are prepared. That is, take the base as the past budget, take the budget from the past period, and the past will not continue to happen even in the future. So, what changes would take place in the future? The incremental changes. According to that, those changes are incorporated in the past budget, and an incremental budget is prepared. That's a normal way of preparing budgets, incremental budget. Okay, making incremental changes to the already existing budget, incremental budget. The advantages, it's simple, easy to prepare. Um, Not much time is needed. Only the changes which are anticipated are taken place, and that is incorporated, and a budget is prepared. So that's an incremental budget. Easy to prepare, simple, fine. Um, there are disadvantages with that. What are the disadvantages? See, if the past budget has anything which is excess cost, wastage, inefficiency, inappropriate figures, budget slack, they tend to continue even into the future, because everything will not be looked into very carefully. Only the changes which are anticipated for the future, according to that only those changes only are made, but otherwise the thorough understanding about each variable is not taken up. So that is a disadvantage. So the slack, if it is there, it will continue. Excess cost which are there, they will continue to happen even in the future also. So there would be no tight control on the performance. That is a disadvantage. Therefore, another type of budget is called as zero based budget. Zero based budget or budgeting talks about preparing a budget without taking any base. Zero becomes the base. So every item which has to be included in the budget has to carefully assessed and included in the budget, and an appropriate justification also has to be provided why this amount of cost is needed to be incurred. So that justification also has to be given. And then in that case, because everything is carefully researched and included, no possibility of any excess cost or a slack included in the budget. The disadvantage is we see that it is time taking. It's a lengthy process because every variable has to be estimated properly and it has to be prepared. So time taking, costly, fine. But it is advisable that once in a while they should go for zero based budgeting. So it is I mean, assume that it if once in every 5 years if it is taken up, then that they can deal with that excess costs included in the budget. Fine. Generally, we see zero-based budgeting happening in the government organization. When there is change in government, then they do not adopt what was planned by the previous governments. Then everything will be prepared once again fresh. So that is zero-based budgeting. Another thing is activity based budgeting. We've learned about activity based costing. That is, activity based costing is very specifically useful in case of those costs which are not identifiable. They are indirect costs or overhead costs. So specific to overhead costs, the way overhead costs are allocated, activity based costing is used based on the principles of ABC. If a budget is prepared, see, uh, there are costs which are identified direct costs, which are not identified indirect costs. So direct costs are variable in nature. All of them can be anticipated, expected, calculated according to the activity level. But overhead costs are not identified with any cost object. So anticipating, expecting these amounts is a difficulty. It is not possible to anticipate these costs effectively. So when they cannot be anticipated effectively, then the principles of activity based costing are adopted for the purpose of estimating overhead costs. So what are the activities are first identified, what amounts would be needed for all these activities is identified. Then, according to the usage of the activity, overhead costs are anticipated for the future. So, to forecast those indirect costs, the principles of activity based costing are adopted and activity based budgets are prepared. I hope I'm clear. Anything can be asked, even for a theoretical answer also it can be asked. So we have zero based budgeting, we have activity based cost budgeting. Okay, how do they select the appropriate budget? Selecting a budgetary system, it differs from organization to organization. So it says that what are the determinants. The first one is the type of organization, type of industry, the product and the product range, and the culture of the organization. Which one is more suitable? A simple organization, they can go with authoritative style of budget. They can go with incremental budget. Not many changes are anticipated, so they can prepare a budget. A periodic budget can be prepared. But the organization type is large in size with complex activities, multiple departments, many activities there. In that case, maybe they have to go with the rolling budget, the activity based budgeting. Okay. Um, Flexible budgeting. So various types of budgets are there. So depending on what is the size of the organization, um, uh, what is the structure, what are the activities, the complexity, all those things are taken into consideration. The industry, sometimes there are very frequent changes, or sometimes they are settled. There are not much changes anticipated in that particular industry. So depending on that, either they go for rolling budget or they go for periodic budget. The type of product and product range also, they can choose about what is the most suitable budget. Not much changes happen. um, According to whatever is the predicted value, the same activity level happens. Then in that case, they can go with the static budget, fixed budget, otherwise go with flexible budget. Okay, depending on if there should be a tight control on the people in the organization, maybe authoritative style works. Otherwise, everybody is open, and then they can participate in the budget preparation, go for participative style of budget. So it depends on various determinants to decide on what type of budgeting is suitable for the organization. What factors to be considered, how much is the time consumed. Activity based costing is activity based budgeting is quite time consuming. Constantly updating is continuous budgeting. So depending on what is the amount of time consumed and what is the time available, are suitably trained staff available to implement the change successfully, management time, training needs, and whatever budget system which is adopted, measure the benefits versus what are the costs which are incurred. So if the benefits are better, go for that. Otherwise just continue with the regular one. So any method which is, or any system which is adopted, that should have more benefits than the cost which is incurred for that budget system. Okay, beyond budgeting, okay, they should also focus on, apart from the quantitative factor, the qualitative aspects also should be taken. Budget is a financial aspect, financial plan. So beyond budgeting, they should also think about greater use of rolling budgets. They should focus on non-financial targets like satisfying the customers, motivating the employees, safety of the employees, the work environment. Those things are beyond the financial perspective. So they should also focus on non-financial targets. Innovation is encouraged and rewarded. Budgets are set locally. Okay. There are budgetary controls. There are different types of controls. One is feedback. Feedback is based on whatever happened in the past. The first one is feedback controls. Whatever happened in the past, um, implementing certain control measures so that um, they can have effective controls based on what happened, anticipating this in, if something like that would happen, what are the control measures. So that is feedback. But if they need not wait until something happens and then take that and then work out on that. Before that also, certain things can be anticipated, predicted that something would happen, and kind of a directive measures which are taken, preventive measures which are taken. We call that as forward control, feedback control and feed forward control. Okay, defined as forecasting of differences between actual and planned outcomes. So what could happen, so it is predicted, it is assumed to have happened, and certain preventive measures are taken. That's called as feed forward control. Then I have already explained to you about flexible budgeting. Okay, that is all about the budgeting. In between, we've left one topic, so we'll take it up in the next week, because I need to draw the diagram, that is decision tree. A diagram has to be drawn. So while we work it out also, so the decision tree, I'm not doing that now. Don't worry about it. We will take it up in the next class. So it looks like a tree. How does a tree look like? It's the stem starts, and then we see that there are multiple branches. Then branches also can be split into smaller branches. It goes like that. So that is presented uh, horizontally. It is not vertically presented. So it goes like this. The tree looks like the stem, and branches are split into. So in case of decision making also, but the tree is presented horizontally. So the stem will be later on split in the into branches, and each branch, multiple decisions are assigned here, and then decisions are taken. So we will take up this particular topic in the next class, and there are few problems also given for decision tree. Let's work it out, those questions, in the next class. I do not know when the next class is. So whenever we have the next class, we will work it out, this particular topic, and take up the other topics as well. Okay. Any doubts? So when is your vacation starting from?
19th, ma'am.
19th. So 19th. The next 23rd you will not be there, but you'll come back on 29th for the classes. Okay.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. But otherwise you had exam, something like that was initially thought about. Exams are
Yes,
postponed, I
there
guess.
was exam, but it got postponed.
Okay, okay, okay. So that would be in January.
Not decided yet, ma'am.
No.
Timetable will come.
Okay, okay. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Fine, then I'll wind up the class here. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good day.
Thank you, ma'am.